Has Prince Harry sold his soul, his relationship with his family, his country, his heritage, and everything else in his entire life for the almighty dollar? And will his forthcoming memoir really be a decision he regrets for the rest of his life? Hello everyone, welcome to Royal News Network. My name is Brittany, and today we are talking about the breaking news that Prince Harry's memoir is apparently going to be published on January 10th, 2023. So this is after a lot of backwards and forwards, a lot of questions. He was going to publish it sometime in this fall for the Christmas season, and then that didn't work out, and the Queen died. It was really the Queen's death that kind of put everything up in the air, and there's a lot of questions about was Harry going to do rewrites and edit to take out some of his more defamatory statements. But now we have an official release date, and as I was reading through the New York Times, which broke the story, I just couldn't help but catch on to this fact that it's so apparent that this kind of media conglomerate that Meghan has convinced Harry to create really is a detriment to really Harry. And basically he's trading everything, his soul, his relationships, everything, for the sake of Meghan Markle's dreams and for them to cash in as much as humanly possible. And I feel like everybody else around Harry is pushing him to a certain extent to do this, in part because, again, they're all like, well, everybody needs their money. Because once you've gotten into a contract with someone, they want something in return. And I feel like Harry is slowly starting to find out that at the end of the day, none of these people, none of these deals really have his best interests at heart. Really, it's all about Meghan and money. So guys, I'm going to detail with you guys a little bit of that today and how I kind of came to those conclusions. But if you guys haven't been here to Royal News Network before, my name is Brittany, and I provide compelling royal commentary on this channel. So if you love everything related to royals, we'll even talk about history, review television shows and movies, and just talk about the latest news and gossip of the day. I would love it if you could subscribe. That would be absolutely fantastic. And of course, if you love royal fashion, so this is not only the clothing and the shoes and everything, but tiaras and jewelry and orders and all these sorts of things, check out Royal Fashion News as well. I do all those things there, including Tiara Tuesday, where I talk about one tiara every Tuesday, and I'll do a couple other things as well. But like I said, this breaking story from the New York Times. So because the New York Times is reporting this, I feel pretty confident they're probably right on the money when it comes to this question. They've done a couple other things, but I really feel like this is one of their first big breaks. And I feel like this seems right. It kind of comes after The Crown, after the documentary or reality TV show, as I call it, and then into the new year. All these things are kind of culminating together so Harry can release his memoir for seemingly maximum effect. But is this the best thing for Harry? No, it's not. And is it the best thing for his relationships with his family? No, absolutely not. Every time I kind of look at all this, and as I was reading through the New York Times article, I was just struck by how everything has moved together in order to make Harry as profitable as humanly possible to Meghan. Now, I could be totally reading into this incorrectly. Absolutely. He could be 100% on board with this. But at the same time, I feel like if he had been married to somebody different, he would not be going down this path. I think Meghan pushed and pushed and pushed him, and they've created all these deals with Netflix, Spotify, Random House, and now they have to deliver on these promises. These promises can potentially damage Harry's public image, his relationship with his family, his future in the monarchy, the future of his children in the monarchy, all these things, because all these companies are saying, hey, we gave you X number of dollars. We want our pound of flesh. They're all coming calling. So Harry has sold out. He's sold everything for this. And will it benefit him in the way that I think Meghan's convinced him it has, and as I think her handlers kind of convinced him that it has? Or will Harry ever recover from this? Because I've always been of the opinion, at about 5 years or so, maybe a little bit more now, because Harry and Meghan are so separated from the royal family, Harry and Meghan will divorce. I don't think they have a ton in common really beyond their supposed charitable endeavors. So I think at the end of the day, they will perhaps split ways, because I don't think, again, their foundation is probably all that good. And I always thought Harry would probably be, that's why the family has treated him with kids' gloves for so long, is because they anticipated, they knew Harry and Meghan would probably divorce. They knew this would all end in tears. So they were giving him a way back in. But what if this, whatever he puts in his memoir, utterly and irreparably damages that to such an extent he has no alternatives anymore? The royal family is like, well, we'll kind of have some sort of pseudo relationship with you, but the bonds of family, the bonds of trust are no longer there. I am actually a historian by training, so I've read a lot of books, and what I found was really interesting. I've read a lot about communism and North Korea, and what I kind of discovered is that when it comes to communist regimes, and as they're really starting to crack down and the totalitarianism is really taking over, is that part of this effort is to break bonds between family members. Because if the family members don't trust each other, they can't gather around together for one single cause. So a husband and wife, technically you can't tell your spouse everything because you don't know if your spouse is going to go tell the authorities that, hey, my wife is really thinking of leaving. Oh, hey, my husband, he gets this illegal material. And that might sound crazy, but that actually does happen. In addition to that, sometimes what they'll do as well is they'll get their kids separated from the parents, and they'll tell the kids, hey, you need to report X to us if they see it. And I was actually reading a report where this child did report it and they executed his father. So I think looking at all this, Harry has created this world where he's irreparably broken from everybody in his life, all his long-term friends, all his family. He has no solid bonds with them anymore. And this could be a grenade. And once that grenade goes off, much like if you're living in a communist regime, you ain't getting it back. There ain't nothing to get back. So it will be interesting to see if Harry amended this in any way to pull back some of his criticism from his family, because we have heard Camilla might be the main target of some of his attacks. We've also heard perhaps that, he'll attack his father, William and Catherine, and the royal institution in general. Now, I will say I agree that royal institutions, hey, it's tough to be a royal to a certain extent. Your life is not your own. You are basically subscribed from birth to being a certain person and having a certain role. I think to a certain extent that is hard because there's a lack of freedom there. However, I think there's beauty in people understanding the limitations that their life gives them and looking at, yes, there are some negative things, but hey, I get to live in a palace. I get to have this salary. I get to do these incredible things for people. And I have this really unique role that a bloke like Harry, who, let's just say it, probably would not be a mainstream actor. He doesn't necessarily have the best looks in the world, that he actually has this enormous platform basically because of just who his parents are. Without his parents, Harry would be a bloke doing plumbing somewhere, I think, or failing out of the army. I don't know. He would be doing something. He did have to leave the army. He did retire, but did he retire? I can't remember, but he did have to leave because he couldn't kind of get to that officer level. So just looking at all this, I feel like Harry has been taken on a ride. And I feel like perhaps this memoir and the Queen's death and everything surrounding it is really starting to get him thinking, wait. Pump the brakes here. Is this really the right thing? Am I doing the right thing? Because I guess apparently there was some turmoil and drama behind the scenes. After the death of Queen Elizabeth last month, any attacks the memoir might make on members of the royal family or the monarchy could strike many readers as unseemly. Prince Harry has gotten cold feet about the memoir's contents at various points. Book industry executives with knowledge of the process told The Times, and the project has been shrouded in rumors, delays, and secrecy. And I think that's a function of not only the turmoil going on behind the Queen's death, but I think Harry throughout the process going, oh, okay, I do want to say this, but do I really want to say this? And I think he's hedging constantly. And I think that has slowed down the process as he's trying to debate internally, do I really want to say X? Do I really want to say Y? And I think everybody, because there's millions upon millions of dollars on the line, including this apparently $20 to $25 million book deal Harry and Meghan managed to acquire with Random House to produce multiple books. The first one, which didn't do well at all, is that I think he's starting to, there's a lot of pressure on them to perform, and they've been told, you have to do this. You sign these contracts. And at the end of the day, since the bench didn't sell that well, they really need Harry's memoir to break the bank. And so they're like, okay, we need this to do well. I don't care if you're busting up your family relationships anymore. The publishers are like, that's not our problem. Hey, it actually makes us more money. Say whatever you want, Harry. We'll 100% support you. So I think Harry's suddenly realizing that, oh crud, I'm really in it now. Will this damage my relationships as much as I think it will and as much as they're damaged already? Because to a certain extent, I do agree that Harry sees this family and it's just like, oh, they're so oppressive. They didn't like Meghan. He's not aware of the fact that there was legitimate reasons why they were concerned about her. And he's not, I don't think, 100% there yet. Although I'm certain that because of Meghan, he missed out on seeing his grandfather and his grandmother in their final years for much of their final bit of life. I think those are regrets he will have, especially with the Queen, because he was there in the UK when she died and he didn't visit her. I think that will haunt him for the rest of his life. And he only has himself to blame. He only has himself to blame. Now, granted, I don't know whatever Harry and Meghan agreed to, but there's no reason why they shouldn't have gone and visited the Queen. I think they had it in their minds that she would live forever. The family thought she would live to be 100, but at that age, something can happen in an instant. So why wait? Why this kind of hesitation? And again, I think this will haunt Harry forever. And if he continues to go through with his memoir, and if it's as biting as some people believe it is, I feel like Harry then again is stuck with the fact that he may never have a relationship with his brother or father again the way he did. I mean, I don't think he has that right now, but there may never be a foundation to which to rebuild that ever to where it was. It goes on to say the memoir will be published at a delicate moment for the British monarchy and public, which is still adjusting to King Charles III and reeling from the economic and political instability. Its release also thrusts Harry into an impossible situation. Damaging revelations could hurt the monarchy and his relationship with his family, but holding back could dampen sales, making it more difficult for his publisher to recoup its considerable costs, and could erode Harry's self-made image as a rebellious, truth-telling prince. Now, I don't really feel like Harry has that reputation to protect. I don't really think that's their truth-telling royal, but that's the thing. The publisher is thinking sales, sales, sales. What's Harry thinking? Family, family, family. He wasn't thinking that these two things, that there's a correlation here. The publisher wants him, because they want the sales, they want him to say the most damaging things he possibly can. And Harry's over here going, I think he agreed with that at first, but as the Queen died, you do generally, as a family member dies, you do rethink relationships, you do rethink what you've been doing. And so Harry's over here going, wait, is this going to go too far? Am I going to damage things too much? And I think it's dawning on him that yes, that may actually be the case, Harry, and that the publishers don't care. They don't care in this. Neither does Netflix, neither does Spotify. They do not care. They want their pound of flesh. They want their money. So Harry has to sing. He has to spill his guts because he has nothing else to sell. His ability to sell things is entirely based on his connection to the monarchy and nothing else. That's all I've seen from Harry and Meghan is them talking about themselves and the monarchy. They have not established their brand independently from that. They have been unable to actually create something, develop something that is separate from their lives as royals. Now, granted, if Harry was in Hollywood, let's say for 5 or 10 years, he ended up being a very successful producer, and he ends up publishing a memoir, sure. But Harry and Meghan, they rushed everything. Meghan wanted as much money as humanly possible. She's like, well, let's get a deal with Netflix, let's get a deal with Spotify, let's get this publishing deal, and we can just spill our guts, and then we'll go on a reconciliation tour. That was apparently the plan in her mind, or somebody's mind connected with them. And it's just this thing where it's like, that does not work. This is much more delicate than she's seeming to think it is, and Harry's seeming to think it is. At the end of the day, if you damage these relationships, there ain't anything going, there ain't no way back. There is no way back for Harry after this, I don't think. If he is, especially if he really attacks Camilla, because Camilla has finally been accepted by the public. A recent poll came out that said when people thought of who they admired most for women, Catherine came in first. I don't know where in the list they came in, but it was actually Camilla over Meghan. Camilla actually has more respect, 1 percentage point, so not a ton, more respect for the public than Meghan. That's huge. And I think this will only continue to erode Harry's relationship in the public's eye because the tide is already shifting. The tide is already turning. I think at some point you could say 50 people, well, let's not say 50-50 because there's about 50% in the middle who are like, I don't care either way. And there's 25% that love Harry and Meghan and 25% that hate Harry and Meghan. And I think instead of this middle column kind of coming together like this, it's actually going this. There's less and less people who like Harry and Meghan. And this Sussex squad over here, although it's still loud, because they're on social media, so they're very loud. It's still loud, but it's not as loud as it could be, and it's a diminishing audience. The tide is turning to not liking Harry and Meghan. The more they talk, the more irritated people get with them. The more they talk, the more they're inconsistent in what they say because they can't keep up with kind of the narrative and the stories they told before. We can basically call them, it appears like they lie because they say one thing and then say another thing, sometimes within days of each other or sometimes within the same interview. Again, they contradicted each other about the story about the mental health crisis Meghan supposedly had and who and what and how that comment about Archie's skin tone was made. Was it like Harry said and was made one time when they were initially dating, or was it like Meghan said? It happened multiple times while she was pregnant. Because they can't keep their story straight. And we've been told as well that the stories they've said in the reality TV show and the stories they've said in the memoir don't add up. And that's a problem. And to a certain extent for Netflix and Spotify, or Netflix and Random House, they can go, hey, you know what? Journalists and people who hate Harry and Meghan, they'll have a field day with the fact that Harry and Meghan can't keep their facts straight. So we'll just go with this. Who cares anymore? And again, that's a problem for Harry and Meghan. That's a huge problem for their public image. So this rush to get all these big contracts, yes, they needed the money. But again, they didn't really think any of this through. And they made the mistake of not actually, again, working on whatever talents they had to actually create something separate from the monarchy because they're still trading off their royal connections or royal titles to get anywhere. That's the only reason any of these publishers gave them the time of day. This is from literary agent Matt Latimer. He says, is his goal to enhance his celebrity with a certain sector of the public, or is it to repair the rift with his family? Those are competing goals and to some extent hard to do both. Yes, that is incredibly critical. Does Harry want to mend bonds with his family? Does he ever want to do that? Because if he doesn't, then sure, publish the book. But if he does, you're up a creek without a paddle. And your kids' titles are on the line because they're still holding out because they want to see what's in the reality TV show and they want to know what's in the memoir. They're not stupid. And I will say I was irritated that somebody's reporting that although they've discussed the Regency Acts and amending it because Harry and Andrew, who are 2 of the 4 counselors of state, are not working members of the royal family. Neither actually is Princess Beatrice, who's also one. So they're talking about expanding it to include perhaps Catherine, Edward, and Anne. However, apparently they don't want to take Harry and Andrew off to avoid the embarrassment. And I'm of the opinion that royalty in this modern age should be a privilege, not a right. What I mean by that is, yes, you are born with a royal title, but whether or not you work, whether or not you have any sort of public profile is a privilege. And ergo, that privilege can be stripped from you if you step too far out of line. And that's how they need to go. It needs to be, monarchies have always been kind of brutal systems in a way. And I know we don't think of it that way, but it still needs to be that way because to protect itself, it has to operate as if it's in a medieval court. That's the best thing to do. The memoir has been the subject of intense speculation in the publishing world and among royal watchers. British tabloids and publishing insiders have debated how candidly Harry will be in revealing the causes of his caustic break with his family and how much damage he'll be willing to inflict on the institution of the monarchy. In the wake of the Queen's death, some political commentators have questioned the value of the monarchy, and new revelations from Harry could fuel the public's skepticism of the institution and its sprawling cast of courtiers. Don't forget, The British royal family is there by consent. They need to earn and keep the respect of the British public, said Valentine Lowe. If there is ever damaged in a fundamental and permanent way, that could be very serious. Now, what I find so ironic about Harry and Meghan in this whole thing is what Valentine Lowe said. Again, it is very true. And like I said, royalty is a privilege, not a right anymore. So, what's really funny to me is that Harry and Meghan could torpedo the royal family, which is what gave them any sort of platform to begin with. And so if the whole institution disintegrates, what are Harry and Meghan gonna do? They have nothing else to sell but their connection to the royals. And so I really feel like it's self-defeating in a way, but again, goes to show, I think that to a certain extent, Meghan, if she couldn't rule it, she just wants to raise it to the ground. And again, I don't think that's going super well for them. I think they're finding out that, hey, people actually want you to do things. You need to actually perform for them. And that's hard for Harry and Meghan because they don't have a lot to sell, I don't think. And it's becoming a real big challenge. And I think the rest of the world is looking, going, okay, well, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? And Harry and Meghan are trying to make this all work, and yet it's not at the same time. Despite Harry's attempt to present his memoir as a high-minded endeavor, the announcement sparked a wave of giddy guesswork among royal experts about how much he would dish. A recent article in the British paper The Daily Mail, which predicted that the memoir would deliver bombshell after bombshell, contained thinly sourced chatter about the anxiety that the prospect of a tell-all is supposedly causing in the royal family. Buckingham Palace is in a state of high alarm, with courtiers said to be asking themselves if anything can be done to stop its publication. It's unclear, though, how much further Harry will go. In media interviews, Harry and Meghan have described this psychological toll of the harsh and unrelenting tabloid coverage of the lack of support they felt from the royal family and the racism they said was directed at Meghan, who revealed that she had at one point felt suicidal. But the couple have not disclosed, for example, who in the royal family speculated about the skin tone of their child. And again, this is a media game. They want their pound of flesh. So they want Harry and Meghan to basically spill the guts. Tell us everything. We don't care what it costs you. Tell us everything. And again, they're being pushed to do that because they have the reality TV show coming out before that. So I think officially it will come out in November or December after The Crown. And again, it's all this stuff coming together because they're selling different things. They're selling aspects of themselves in order to prop up their brand, because their brand themselves is failing because they just don't seem to have that much to offer without utilizing the connection of the royals. Yes, this is arriving at a delicate moment of transition. Yes, people are nervous. Yes, it could damage the monarchy. In the long run, unless Harry has something astonishing to say, they'll write it out. But let's see what Harry has to say. And that again was Valentine Lowe. I think Harry is in a very precarious situation here. He could lose everything. Everything. All for the sake of money. And again, Harry and Meghan need money, but I think there are ways to avoid this. I think there are ways to do this without Harry having to sell out his family, sell out his life, his relationships, everything about himself in order to satisfy their debtors to Random House, Netflix, and Spotify. And they're all kind of culminating together to try to create as much fervor as humanly possible to sell Harry and Meghan to the highest bidder, especially Harry. And I think, again, that was led by Meghan, and it's just, I think, will end disastrously for Harry. So guys, let me know what you think. Let me know of what you think of this latest update about Harry's publication. I would love to hear from you. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye.